Schiller uses this as his chief weapon in his fight against the commonplace concept of naturalism, against the illusionism commonly demanded from dramatic poetry. While for Schiller, in theatre, the daylight itself is merely artificial, the architecture is merely symbolic, and the metrical language is idealized. Delusions still predominate. It is not enough for Schiller that we should only tolerate as a poetic liberty what is in fact the essence of all poetry. So he's saying that Schiller's kind of missing the point, because he's like, there's something that's the mere essence of it. It's like, oh, we'll just tolerate it, I suppose. It's almost like he's projecting what he wants into it without understanding how it really works. And you'd think understanding how it actually works is the point, but it seems not. The introduction of the chorus is the crucial step towards the open and honest declaration of war on all naturalism in art. Okay. This is the kind of interpretation, it seems to me, for which our own age, convinced of its own superiority, uses the dismissive catchword pseudo-idealism. I fear, on the other hand, that in our idealization of the natural and the real, we have arrived at the opposite pole from our idealism, the realm of the wax museums. These are without art, like certain popular novels of the present day. These too are without art, like certain popular novels of the present day. I only ask that I should not be troubled with the claim that this art, Schiller's and Goethe's pseudo-idealism, has been vanquished. Yeah. He asked not to be troubled that in that claim that pseudo-idealism has been vanquished. So it's like scientism seems to fit this theme that he's discussing here. The Enlightenment's great in certain regards, and we've really got certain technological advances and that have helped people out and brought higher quality of life, or at least in material aspects. You could say that there's more superficiality to some extent, that we're losing our connection with nature, for example, especially with the way technology has, yeah, we're getting the steam engine, we're getting all this technology, but obviously we're aware of the effect it's had on the planet. And if there's less nature around, we don't connect with nature. There's evidence that being around plants and nature is just good for your psychological well-being, and there's less of it around. I mean, it's a no-brainer that's going to have an effect on the psychological well-being of the majority, everyone, pretty much, right? There's something that the left's been particularly prone to talk about is the idea of the atomization effect, where capitalism or commercialism or whatever, corporatism, whatever you call it, where there's been this stripping away of meaning, where everything has become about material gain and possessions. And they kind of have a point. I don't say that's the be all and end all of understanding what's going on, but that's a factor. Basically, there's this heavy focus on everything needs to be real, everything needs to be solidly backed up, and everything's like in a logical left brain way. We've got to understand everything, and it's not acceptable that if something isn't like that. That's just backwards traditionalism, that's oppressive or irrational or both. And people think, oh, like the Crusades, right? The Crusades. Yes, yes. There were terrible things done, Spanish Inquisition, the Crusades, just witch hunts, just unhelpful superstition at times. These things did exist. Those dynamics did happen. That doesn't mean let's just trample on anything that isn't utterly provable and utterly material and utterly real. Because then we're left with a desolation or desert where I don't mean literally, but perhaps, I mean, if you look at how monoculture agriculture, the way it just, all the chemicals they put in things actually desolates the actual farmland in the long run, so that it can't really produce stuff in the long run and creates more expansion of desert. But in a symbolic sense, if you make there a desert of meaning and a desert of the right brain symbolism and the symbolic, a symbolic wasteland, where everything has to be hard, clear-cut, logical, rational, the artistic, heart-centered, exploratory aspect of experience becomes just hammered out of the picture, so that we can have, we're left with something that's a bit bland by comparison. And then people have got all these coping mechanisms to deal with the fact that they're cut off from reality in a sense, and they've got this artificiality to everything. And then people start acting artificial and they don't know what's wrong. They got this fundamental sense of unease, and often people end up projecting it onto other people. Those guys are the right, I feel this way. I feel unpleasant, and they're triggering my sense of feeling unease, and they are the reason, they are the problem. Well, really, they might actually just feel deeply dissatisfied in life and try to fill a hole with shallow things, and ultimately that's not enough, and their stress and their sadness or their anxiety ends up being projected onto other people. And that's not to blame them for it. It's inevitable given how things have gone on. And I do feel like this sort of thing is what's being alluded to by Nietzsche here.